Welcome to the Actors Side. Today we have Academy Award, Emmy, Golden Globe, everything. She's won everything. Melissa Leo, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Good to be here with you.
When you look at all the awards you've won in the past few years, pretty amazing, right? You look at that and you go like, wow.
I literally do have the beautiful different hardware around the house in particular spots, and I literally will sometimes walk through my house and go, oh my God, I really did. It's funny.
It's funny. What does that mean to you to have this kind of recognition from your peers?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, it's all quite delightful and interesting, and on the other hand, there's not really any change at all. I'm still me. But the biggest change I find it's really actually hard to describe. I want to, but it's hard to describe. It's very internal and deep and private in a way. And I feel accepted. I feel I can call some pretty fancy people my peers. And after a lifetime of self-identifying as an actor, that feels kind of nice to be able to be a part of a larger group of actors.
Did you ever have those dreams? Did you ever rehearse your Oscar acceptance speech in the mirror like I hear so many people do when they're younger? And
I never really, for me, acting is, again, it's about the process of making the piece. It's not the end result. That's just the experience of my career for the first 25 years, really. You know, it's really the last handful of 7, 8 years where there's been this other aspect to it. Unexpected, delighted. Does it make me a different person? Not really. Does it boost my confidence a little in a funny kind of way? Yeah.
You did have one of the most delightfully off-the-cuff Oscar acceptance speeches ever.
I'm just glad they have that delay, because I wouldn't want to get the Academy in that kind of trouble.
That's right. Yeah. But that just shows when you get up there, you know, wow, it's just like an out-of-body experience, probably.
Very much so, and I had had a wonderful awards season,
right.
And it had seemed quite simple and fun and delightful with the Golden Globe group or the SAG group or the, you know, but in front of that house at the Academy Awards, it really is, and Kirk Douglas there, I mean, I was floored.
I was going to say this all leading up to there's more awards buzz for you right now. You may have heard, you may not have heard, but I've certainly begun it for Novitiate, and you're just fantastic. I think this is the first nun that you've ever played, a Reverend Mother here in this film. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
In all the roles you've done, you've never been able to do this one yet.
Never donned the cloth, as it were. Yeah, no, it was, and very much the thing that drew me to the piece and to the role was a chance to play a nun and to play the head nun. Well, who?
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Did you have any experience with nuns growing up or anything, in terms of experiences of how they...
Well, the first thing that needs to be said is I am not Catholic. I was not raised Catholic. I am not Catholic. I had no Catholicism to dispel. It's all kind of fantastic to me. I love the stories. I'm a fool for a nativity, but it's not my faith. I don't know that I have that kind of organized faith. For me, part of the draw to play a nun in the Catholic Church is the distance she might be from me.
Oh, interesting.
And that intrigues me as an actor, to reach for someone and make them so close I can become them.
And you have to do it as an acting challenge, too. You're wearing that habit, so your face is here. And
it's sort of the opposite of doing mask work.
Right.
Where the performer would hide their face. And,
yeah. What is that like, just in terms of the acting challenge of that?
Oh, it's part of what was delightful, that you have, so unlike my life of expression and expressing, and part of a nun's job is this contemplation. Continued contemplation. So quietness of face is part of why the habit, in fact, looks that way. Here I am talking with my hands.
Right.
The hands are to be covered at most times. It's a quiet way to live. So for me, there was a huge challenge. You can see me recreating it now in a way, to keep this plastic face of mine still and quiet, even in the heights of emotion that she's being asked to play.
And she is such a dominant force in this movie. I mean, clearly this is her life. I thought it was it was almost sad to watch her because they're saying everything's about to change, and this is all she's known for 40 years, right?
And in a way that you and I, cannot really even concept all she's really known.
Yeah.
Do you know? To enter the convent in the time that the Reverend Mother did, which would have been in the 20s, she was very, very young. She had not seen much of the world because of that. The 20s, the world was a different place than even it was by the 60s. But she doesn't know the world of the 60s.
Yeah, right.
In the very first lines I speak in the film, she says, and it's the truth, she's not left the convent grounds for 40 years. It is her home, it is her way of life. And now these papers coming in from the Vatican are going to completely turn that upside down.
Yeah, which is happening many times. I mean, did you do a special kind of research for this?
I did a certain amount of research. I had a very short amount of time from the time I was asked and agreed to do it.
Like about a week, right? Or
a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think they had been looking for me earlier than that, I hear tell, but I was busy doing something else. And when I'm working, I tend to not listen to anything else outside the work I'm doing at the moment. So by the time I knew about it, it was about 2 weeks out from shooting, and I had a fascinatingly odd encounter with somebody in my hometown up in Ulster County, New York, where somebody I ran into happened to know an ex-nun. Oh. And within a couple of days was able to set up and sat with her for about 3 hours. It was really lovely because she was a memory from long ago for her. And that was a good stepping off point for me, and gave me a good sense of her experience, and a very clear sense that as many different people as there are in any given circumstance, here we all are, elbows, noses, ears, we are all different people. And all the nuns are different people too.
Finally, I'd like to talk about silence. We observe two kinds of silence here: regular silence and grand silence. During regular silence, if you feel you have the need to speak, it's permissible. But when you hear that bell at 9 o'clock at night, signifying the beginning of grand silence, that means you don't talk. Any questions? Put your hand down, sister. Postulants don't have questions. And you are free to go home.
I'm wondering, when did you decide to get into acting? Because I think you started, actually, on stage, as it were, at a very, very young age. Is that right?
Yes, that's completely true. There's a beautiful man, Peter Schumann, and his lovely wife, Elke, who have what is called a puppet theater, but you have to understand they're puppets as small as this and puppets so big they couldn't fit in this great big room. Puppets operated by many people, puppets that in fact are people with masks over their heads, all kinds of puppets in the Bread Puppet Theater. But when I was, probably before I was 5 years old, I was doing some work on the Lower East Side with Peter Schumann and Elke.
That's interesting to do as a kid.
It was fascinating. I had no idea what it was. I just knew that these adults were willing to play. It was not children's theater when I say puppets and being small. It was a bunch of grown-ups pretending. They were so serious about their pretending. I look back on it now, and I just saw Peter and Elke again this summer up in Glover, Vermont, and he remains one of the finest directors I've ever worked with.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. You've worked with so many directors, and I'm wondering what makes a really good director in your view. You've worked with actors who have turned director, and straight directors. I'm just wondering what your thought is of a good director for you.
It can come in a lot of different outfits, a good director. And it's, there's an ability to talk to all comers in the way that each of them need be talked to, because some actors like a lot of praise, and that helps them work.
Do you?
Praise me too much when I'm working, I'll go home.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. If not for real, sort of inside, I'll go, okay, now what do I do?
Wow.
My experience in the world is striving, always striving, always striving, always working. If anything, I work too hard. And so a good director, for me, is a director that takes me down out of the trees.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, you've worked with so many and done so, I noticed on your credits a soap opera, which you did for a few years, right? And what kind of training is that for an actor?
Fabulous training.
Is it?
It's so sad to me that the soaps are a dying art. They reach back into the origins of television. There's great genius in the writing. How on earth do you get people day after day, week after week, to tune in again without doing that on purpose?
Right.
And for the actors that do it, the crews that shoot them, it was an incredible employer in my industry. And for me, it was the first money I earned was on the soap opera. It was
it All My Children?
All My Children.
All My Children.
Peter Bergman. I just turned on the television in the daytime. He's on another soap still now. But good old Peter Bergman.
Oh, sure. He's on Young and the Restless. Yeah. Some actors stay on soaps their entire careers. Actually play the same role. I can't imagine doing that. But it's steady work, as they say.
It's steady work. It's steady work. I know I did a TV movie with Susan Lucci, and that's a very interesting and telling story in my history when I worked with Susan on the Bride Wore Black, I think it was called. Yeah. And Susan played an Italian deli owner in Philadelphia, a deli owner's daughter. And we learned to make mozzarella cheese together. And she and I went to the deli and made the mozzarella cheese with her own two hands. And then the producers came in and said, "But Susan, don't you want to put the nails on?" Susan, "Well, no, she's a deli owner's daughter. Want to really be her?" And they're, "But you're fans, Susan." Oh my God. And I watched the producers basically undermine this actress's confidence in the character she wanted to portray. Oh, wow. And have her do Susan Lucci. So whenever people talk about actors being stuck or doing the same, it's go walk in their shoes before you start making too much judgment about the choices that are made. The choices are not always the actor's choice.
Well, from small indie movies and things that have turned magical on the screen, like Frozen River and things, to big giant studio pictures, you seem to do it all. You played defense secretaries, you played every kind of, which I love, by the way, in those movies. To see that kind of casting, I thought was great.
He's a cool cat.
We want more in the future from Melissa Leo. Thank you so much for coming out today.